Hey guys, Chris here from the camera store, and today we are looking at the brand new Canon EOS 80D. Now the 80D is a very exciting camera. We are eager to look at this. Now I think it's fair to say that a lot of people in the industry, people using these cameras, photographers, enthusiasts, have all been a little bit critical of Canon lately, and I think it's well founded. I mean, we have this idea that they're not really coming out with new products that really innovate. They're just doing little band-aids here and there, and they're not really competing. And what we're really excited about now is the Canon EOS 80D, at least on paper, looks like a camera that's now giving us what we've been asking for. So we're looking forward to trying this out today. And I also want you guys to keep in mind that the whole day today, Jordan, against his normal better judgment, is going to shoot the entire video on the EOS 80D, but there's more. He's going to do it in autofocus, because that's really one of the big things about this camera, that hybrid dual pixel autofocus. He's going to test it out today. So pay attention to the video if you want to see things like dynamic range, quality, how well it focuses, and that kind of stuff. Join me today. We're gonna have some fun. All right, guys, so check out this focus pull. I mean, really, really nice and very, very smooth. This is one of the features we really like about the 80D. Now, of course, you've got the dual pixel autofocus, the hybrid focusing that many of the Canon SLRs have. But what's great about the 80D is just how easy it is to use with the touchscreen. Jordan touches on the tree, and then he touches to me, and it does this great focus pull. Now, this is fantastic as well for videographers that are just starting out. Maybe don't have the confidence to be doing these things manually. The 80D makes it so simple. What else we've noticed is, although the 70D and the 7D Mark II have capabilities like this, the 80D seems to be tweaked. The focus pulls just ramp really, really nicely and really, really smoothly. So it just couldn't be simpler to get this nice production value, these beautiful focus pulls, without having to be a manual focus master. All right, guys, now the 80D uses a brand new 45-point all cross-type autofocusing system, and I'm going to play with this quite a bit today. But one thing I'm noticing right off the bat, it is definitely an improvement over the camera like the 70D. Autofocus seems to be nice and quick. The grouping is a 9-point grouping, and one thing that I am going to notice that's different from the 7D Mark II, we don't have as many focusing points, and the 7D Mark II has a lot more capability to do things like choose a single point and then give the camera the freedom to follow around from that. This camera doesn't, and it's actually kind of difficult when we have all these branches here. The group focus gives me an enhanced ability to follow something moving. For example, you check out this duck here flying away in the sky. I was able to follow that and track it really nicely because there was nothing else in the way. But at the end of the shot, the camera sees some branches and it starts to move towards them. So you can't really isolate subjects, tiny subjects, difficult situations like this, but still overall, folks, you're gonna like the focusing on this camera. So far, I'm enjoying it. But the 70 Mark II does definitely give you a more advanced way to track and move with following subjects. So I'm just tracking this chickadee here with the group focusing, and again, it's tough. We're on the ground. We've got lots of grass and stuff in the way, and the camera's trying to do a good job, but it does still pick up on lots of other stuff like the grass. So I could go to single point, and that would probably be the best for a situation like this. The tough part being, of course, that I've got to keep that single point right on my subject. So it would be nice if we could expand the autofocus a little bit more, have a little bit more sophisticated system, but that is what's going to differentiate this camera from a more professional sports body. All right, so of course we have to stop because we've got this very strange, very cryptic note put obviously in a place where this author wants people to see it. I'm gonna take a picture of it here, nice and close, wide angle lens. I don't wanna lay down in the sand on my belly, but luckily the 80D has a beautiful live view capability. I've got my fully articulating flip screen, 3-inch. I can touch anywhere here and my focus point moves around. And of course, with this dual pixel hybrid autofocus, it's just so quick. I mean, there's a lot of SLRs that don't focus this quick through the viewfinder, so it really is a joy to use. Lock it down, take a shot, bam, nice and stable. And of course, the optical viewfinder on the 80D is nothing to sneeze at either. You're getting 100% coverage, which is nice for this camera, 95% magnification. There's a little bit of a tunnely kind of effect, but overall, it's a beautiful viewfinder to use. And yeah, this camera is so nice to compose on, so nice to shoot with, whether you're on the screen or in the viewfinder, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to kind of walk around this area in a funny pattern, folks, and it's just because Jordan's got the 80D as well with the Tamron 35 1.8 shooting at f2, and we're just going to see how well it tracks moving subjects such as myself, even without having an STM lens. Now, when it comes to autofocus as well on the 80D, I do like in the menu system how customizable it is. You can change acceleration, deceleration, how tenaciously does it stick to one spot in group, or is it, allowed to move to others very quickly. Micro adjust, of course. You've got all these nice features on this camera, and it is doing a great job focusing. Keep in mind as well, you've got cameras like the D7200, which are very good, more focusing points than the 80D, but this is 45-point cross type all the way across the board. And the Nikon, you only have 15 points more in a central location. So I do feel very confident with this camera moving my focusing point wherever I want and knowing that it's going to lock on really quick. I find that the 80D has this very slight hesitation before it starts focusing, but then it just jumps warp speed right to your target. Cameras even like the 7D Mark II will gradually go from close to far. It's quick, but you see the transition. This is just nothing, and then bam, right there. So I'd say overall, it's very effective and it's very fast, and you're gonna enjoy it. One thing though that I am finding, you gotta hit your button up here right next to the front dial for your mode selections and your focusing points. And then you have to move with your control pad all the way around here. One complaint I have on the 80D is this back control pad. Now in live view you can touch and that's really nice, but here I have to use this to move my point around manually. And my issue with it is this, as I'm pushing it, I often find that the detection wants to go diagonal when I want to go right or left. It wants to go diagonal right or diagonal down right. And so sometimes it's frustrating to get my focusing point to move where I want it very, very quickly. Actually, the lighter you touch it, the better it works. This is also a problem when you go into the quick menu on the back, because in the quick menu, if you hit diagonal, it does nothing. So often you'll be tapping these buttons, trying to get it to move over the quick menu, and it just won't do it because it thinks it's a diagonal response. Of course, touch screen, just touch your point there. Don't even use that. But otherwise, folks, overall, the 80D does give us a really nice autofocusing capability. And also, hopefully, you just saw it track really well too. There's a couple of nice features on the 80D which will make it excellent for what we've just been doing, shooting deer and wildlife, birds, that kind of thing. Up to 7 frames per second, which I think is just about perfect for a camera in general, but also on this camera at this price point, excellent to have that increase. The other thing too, of course, weather sealing. The 80D is weather sealed. We've seen Mike Drew do terrible stuff to 50Ds, 60Ds, and 70Ds and still see them survive, so I don't think this is going to be any different. As for the shutter, in its price point, I'd say it's pretty average. We played with the Pentax K1 guys, and that shutter is amazing. No slap at all. You're going to like it when we review that camera. On the 80D, it's a little bit noisy. You're getting a little bit of kick. Nothing major, but just what we'd expect at a price point on this camera. All right, so we decided to head back to the car, get the laptop going, and take a look at these files in more detail. Now, first off, ISO performance, this was interesting. Now, the Canon 80D is going to do a better job than a 7D Mark II. That makes sense. The older sensor, getting 4 megapixels away, and we're still getting better low light performance. Where we were quite surprised, though, is compared to the 5D Mark III. We thought, why not test it against Canon's full frame sensor? And although you can see the 5D Mark III does deliver better results, it's fairly slight. The 80D is very close to Canon's full frame sensor, and it doesn't end there. Because what we wanted to look at next was dynamic range, and here was the big surprise. The 80D is a huge jump up. I mean, compared to the 7D Mark II, it's gonna blow it out of the water. Even compared to the 5D Mark III full frame sensor, the 80D delivers better results. We can boost the shadows, we're getting really good push, less vertical banding. The noise is very, very well controlled. It's a minimal pattern. We're very impressed. I mean, take a look at some of these other sample photos. With the 80D, you've got great dynamic range. You can really pull those highlights down and push those shadows. Now, we do have to keep something in context though, and this comes back to why we're so impressed by the 80D and why we're so surprised. When Canon came out with their 20 megapixel sensor, we weren't really blown away. We talked about that in our review. You know, dynamic range wasn't as good as the competition's. And the 5D Mark III, although it was good for the time, is becoming a fairly old camera. It's been on the market for a long time. So the 80D has had a lot of time to really improve, and we're glad that it has. There's some other things you have to keep in mind too. If we compare this camera against other cameras like the 6000, 6300, Nikon D7200, we're not really blowing those cameras out of the water. Canon has made a sensor which now competes on a level playing field. It's not really pushing any boundaries, but at least we're getting past their traditional aspect of being behind in sensor technology. Another thing that I really like too, but I've kind of noticed you got to be careful with, is the exposure on the 80D does tend to go a little bit darker than what you're used to on Canon SLRs. Now, I think that's because in RAW with the Canon 80D, we're finding excellent dynamic range, especially in the shadows. You can really boost them. So Canon is maybe pushing the exposure down lower, really protecting those highlights and letting you bring the shadows up. However, if you're shooting JPEGs, folks, you might have to keep in mind that the camera might need a little bit of overexposure compared to what the meter wants to do at 0. So watch for that.
Hey guys, it's Jordan, the video guy, and I kind of feel like I didn't do too much today shooting with the 80D because I just threw it on a monopod and poked the back of the screen and called it a day. And that's what's really compelling about this camera. In terms of usability, it ticks almost all the boxes that I want. It's got a flip screen on it, it's got a very usable autofocus system, and I want to just stop for a second and acknowledge this fact. They put a headphone jack in a camera that costs less than $2,000. So definitely the most compelling feature on the 80D is its dual pixel focus. And this isn't the first camera to have that. Actually, the 70D, the precursor was, and that camera worked so well because it had a flip screen and touch focus on it. Then Canon went and put that same feature on the 70II, their Cinema series cameras, the new 1DX2, but none of them have flippy touchy screens, and that's where it's most usable. Now, it seems like they've really tweaked the algorithm on this because before it worked quite well with STM lenses, although it could drift occasionally, but it was really kind of jerky if I put any other lenses on, an L series lens, a third-party lens. Now, using it today with L lenses, we used a Sigma, a Tamron lens, I'm finding we're still getting nice, smooth focus pulls with it. And works brilliantly if you want to use some of your existing Canon glass with that. One other thing, with the flip screen now on this and that continuous touch focus, this is an absolutely badass vlogging camera. If you're doing that Newstat, is that his name, kind of stuff, this is the camera, definitely. Actually, let's try that out. Okay guys, so here we are shooting in classic vlog style. I'm using Canon's 24mm 2.8 STM lens, which is just perfect for this. It's the right focal length, very smooth autofocusing as well. Now there are some other nice things I like with the 80D for this kind of work. I've got the flip screen pointed towards me right now, and I can do that really easily because they've moved the headphone and mic jack towards the front of the body. This means you can still get in there nice and easily, flip the screen around. I wish Panasonic would do that with the would you screw off? With the GH4 G7s. Now, like Chris's attention deficit disorder, apparently, this camera does have some things that I find a little bit aggravating. First of all, we don't have a log profile, and Canon hasn't put it on any of their still cameras, just the Cinema series. And it's really frustrating when I know there's so much great dynamic range in this sensor for stills, but I don't really have access to it when I'm shooting video. Also, I wish there were some higher frame rate options. We're starting to see 120 frame per second, 240 become a bit more common, as this is kind of Canon's all-around video camera right now. It'd make a lot of sense to add some of those to it. Also, I do wish there was 4K on this, but honestly, I'd be willing to forego 4K to get that log and those slower frame rates, faster frame rates, better slow-mo. Vlogging's hard.
Now, if you've been a long-time viewer, you may have seen this coming, but yes, we did get a Canon EOS 80D to local photojournalist Mike Drew. He's been on the show a few times, and he knows the blah blah D cameras better than pretty much anybody else because he's basically used every single version of it. So he took some photos, he took some videos, and we really appreciate it. Mike, always good to have you back.
Oh, thanks, good to be back.
And of course, you know these cameras inside and out. You use the 70Ds, what?
70Ds I use every day.
Every day.
Yep.
So, what I really want to find out is, you know, because you've had this previous experience, what did you find with the 80D? What are the big differences for you?
Well, it's just like, I guess you could say that the 80D is just like a steroidal 70D. Everything works equally as well, and most stuff works a lot better.
Right, right. What kind of stuff did you like?
Well, I really liked, one of the things I tried just for fun was to shoot with a 600mm lens and face detect.
Okay, yeah. How did you do?
It almost flawless.
Really, eh?
So I wanted to say a bit about the touchscreen.
Okay.
I know that the camera doesn't have the joystick like the 7D Mark II does. Yeah, all those 80, 70. Come on, Canon,
terrible.
think of something
Throw
else
an
to
integer
call
in there
these
like
things.
75D or
Yeah,
like
anything
83D.
like
That would
that.
be easy. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but anyway, I never found it a problem on the 70D and equally on the 80D because I hit the Q button and I just tap my thumbs on
Right.
wherever I want to change, and it's dirt simple.
Gotcha.
So, and the other thing I wanted to say was I like to do focus pulls, and I find it just so cool to be able to just put your finger on a point and drag it across the screen and watch the focus just move
And ramp
smoothly
as
right
you
across.
drag your finger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
follows your fingertip right across. It's
Very
just
cool.
It's so good.
Anything that you noticed differently about image quality or any of the
Well,
results you got?
I shot some plains bison up in Elk Island National Park, and backlit and dust flying in the air. And at the moment I was shooting, there was no raw support, so I
Gotcha.
shot JPEGs. But I was able to pull back all kinds of detail out of the JPEGs. It was really quite astonishing.
Well, we appreciate it, Mike. It's always good to hear impressions on how this camera's changed, and we found very similar things. Really enjoyed a lot of the new changes. Touchscreen worked well.
Yeah, yeah, it's a spectacular camera.
All right, so that pretty much wraps things up, folks. So who is the Canon EOS 80D for? Well, it's for anybody who doesn't like well-named cameras and for any Canon user on the planet, because frankly, this is pretty much bang for the buck, the best Canon SLR right now on the market. We really love the image quality. This new sensor is fantastic. You know, having the 24 megapixel sensor, even compared to the Rebel T6s, this gives you so much more in ISO performance and dynamic range. All right, so I know I'm giving the Canon 80D a glowing review, and the fact is I'm very proud to be able to do that. And you know, I'm happier than pretty much anybody else on the planet other than other camera reviewers to be able to do this, because it's true. For the last couple of years, we've been crapping on Canon, and I think rightfully so. They just have not been competing on the same playing field as the competition. This is attitude that they've been letting things slip by, and it's refreshing to be able to give this camera a glowing review and really enjoy using it. And it makes us hopeful for the future. Do you get rid of your full frame gear? No, not necessarily. But hopefully a 5D Mark IV is on the route, and I hope that camera is going to continue this tradition and just keep kicking things out with good products, giving the users what they're asking for and not cutting back and cutting corners like we had before. We'd also like to thank Mike Drew, of course, as usual. Great photos. We appreciate his feedback as well. He's very experienced with these cameras. As usual, subscribe, check us out on Instagram. Don't crap on us now for giving Canon such a great review after giving them such poor reviews. I think this is a great sign of the times. We're excited. This is exactly what we wanted. We'll see you guys soon.